serious problem out there. Secluded depression in a world of cold, a life lonely for the homeless with no options to fold. In a paper bag, sleeping bags where they sleep. In a park, on a bench with only pigeons to keep them company. Ironically, they feed these birds while they're reaching out for help and getting nothing but words. We watch, we listen, they slowly die. So we point our finger at the other guy when we know it's wrong, but choose to ignore it. They need our help, can't you see? They're looking for it. Imagine if your whole family died today. You'd have no family but a place to stay. Homeless people have to live in a nation plagued. Their only family, sadly, the others who beg for all they got, which is nothing, not even a start. They push around all the nothing in a shopping cart. So I think to myself, for what I've got, we should help these homeless people for what they have not, and not close our eyes to a problem everyone pities. You don't want to live in 10 cities. 10 cities. 10 cities. 10 cities. To live homeless on the streets, that's as bad as it gets. Women and children starving, Vietnam vets. Every imaginable description and convincing need. Some on drugs, others crippled with a family to feed. But they have no food, they live in a box. Paper walls, maybe a blanket and a pillow of rocks. They're getting sick of all this government talk. Hypocrites more worried about their personal stocks. So this drastic trauma, real life drama, allows a little girl to live life with her mama. Constantly sick, hungry and dying, out on the streets, helplessly trying to have a life and make it worth living. But it's hard, cause too few are given. Just how far will this problem get driven? You don't wanna live in 10 cities. 10 cities. Sometimes there are shelters known as tent city setup, in cities where the mayor and the voters are fed up with the homeless situation. The Constitution gives us rights, but no solution to a problem. And how can we end it? They keep raising our taxes. Where do they send it? All this money.
Hello and welcome to Passions. I'm Donna Lynn. It's election time, and the candidates are playing mum's the word on the issue of homelessness. Why discuss homelessness on a show called Passions? Well, let me read you a brief definition of passion. Passion, let's see. Passion was originally the suffering and agony as of a martyr, the state or power of receiving or being affected by outside influences, or any one of the emotions such as joy, love, hate, grief, fear. Passion usually implies a strong emotion that has an overpowering or compelling effect. When you see homeless people on the streets, what passionate emotions well up from the depths of your soul? Do you feel compassion or pity or possibly fear that one day this could actually happen to you? The video we just saw was shot on the streets of Los Angeles, and that's only a fractional representation of how some people are living. We're here to discuss homelessness and what can be done to end it, and Proposition 165. Joining me today is State Senator Diane Watson, Bob Erlenbusch from the L.A. Coalition to End Homelessness, Josh Ellis from the Republican Party, and Jim Hilfenhaus from the Democratic Party. We'll begin by talking about homelessness. What is being done to end homelessness? Is this a state problem? Is it a national problem? Whose decision? Could the president do something towards ending homelessness? Anyone can answer.
Let me just start off by saying the homeless issue has always been with us. It has ballooned in the last decade or two. When Reagan was governor of the state of California, one thing that he did was to advocate that we should close our state hospitals and send the mental patients back to be treated within their own communities. That was a conceptual move at that point. The state hospitals were closed and people did go back to their communities, but the resources did not follow. So therefore, a lot of the mentally ill are in the homeless population. By our estimations, 30% of the homeless are mentally ill. So the mentally ill now have added to that number, and we don't seem to have programs that have caught up with the numbers of those in need. Now, the state has some programs, but those programs have not been adequately funded. The state has a housing program. It's within the Department of Transportation. Caltrans has HDC, Housing Development Corporation, to develop housing for those homes that were lost because of transportation needs. So we haven't done a good job in the last decade or two providing affordable housing.
Right, affordable housing seems like it would solve many of the nation's problems for the homeless and for possibly people that are on their way to being homeless due to our current economic situation, job layoffs, the hurricanes in Florida, Louisiana, Kauai, people in Oakland. There was a fire a few years ago, and some people, their insurance claims have not been settled. They're homeless. The riots, the earthquakes. There's a lot of hardworking, tax-paying renters and homeowners who are homeless. There are people who work, but they're not earning enough money because of the minimum wage that probably needs to be raised, and they have a choice between food or shelter. So homelessness encompasses people of all people. So,
well, the senator pointed to Reagan. Let me just follow up. Sort of in the wake of everything that you just talked about, that philosophy washed him into the White House, and he just went single-handedly cut 75% of HUD's affordable housing budget. And as the senator said, over the last 10 years, we've seen homelessness go from, you know, sort of the 30s and 40s, single male riding the rails, to women and children and, you know, Vietnam vets and chronically disabled and people with substance abuse problems and people with AIDS, and the list just goes on in terms of the number, the tens of thousands and some say millions of people who are homeless around the country, to a large degree due to the economic devastation starting under the Reagan administration.
Well, I'm glad Senator Watson mentioned a time frame. Since Governor Reagan was governor, since President Reagan was governor, 30 years have gone by, meaning that welfare programs have been in force since the 60s. And we still have a problem, and it's even growing. So obviously, these programs are not the answer. I would say that we need a new approach.
do you have a suggestion for a new approach?
I certainly do. I think that, first of all, it is a personal thing. It comes from the individual. When an individual takes responsibility for himself, when he does not wait for a government to do things for him, when he has the support of not only of his convictions and his own moral self-responsibility, but of institutions around him other than government, such as the church, such as the community, and obviously the family unit, then I think the situation can be improved in that sense. Now, Republican philosophy has always been of self-reliance and of taking responsibility for yourself, and not sitting around waiting for government programs to help you. I believe that welfare, which has been with us, like the Senator mentioned, for over 30 years, is in a sense a drug. It takes away the incentive for people to work. It makes them fall into a lifestyle of being dependent on the government, of going once a month to a welfare office and receiving a check, which allows them maybe enough money to buy food, but certainly not to get anywhere, not to do anything for their families, not to advance anywhere, not to fulfill their dreams, their desires, and their goals. So I don't think I think welfare reform is the most important thing to change this. Obviously, it hasn't worked till now. More welfare programs. Welfare hasn't worked till now.
Okay.
Getting
More will
back to
certainly
the
not help
housing
it.
issue, because
but one, right,
Yes, the housing
right,
issue.
We're in a homeless and a housing issue.
Yeah.
The one thing is that for people that that are homeless and they're on welfare, and leaving them to fend for themselves, sometimes.
No,
I mean,
I'm saying
right. The only thing is that if people are out on the streets, they're either, what do you do? Is it survival of the fittest?
No, certainly
who
not.
decides?
Certainly not.
Well, I think what has to be clarified is the gentleman is talking about welfare. And our biggest welfare program is AFDC. That's Aid to Families with Dependent Children. Now, to say that everybody ought to be on their own is to disregard the fact that AFDC addresses the needs of children. And children need special help. They need their parents. They need food, clothing, and shelter, and other things too. So that is a statement that shows very little knowledge of what the major welfare program is in the state of California.
Well,
And also that will be
Reagan
included in the
administration-
165 discussion,
Right.
which we will get to in the second
But I'd like to get back to the homeless issue.
Yes,
Right.
I was trying to put here a philosophical way of thinking, a viewpoint, which I think should guide us in the future. Now, it's obvious at the present we have a serious homelessness situation, and I believe there are ways to solve it. One of the main ways to do it is through private organizations. I don't think the government should do it.
What would private organizations do to create housing or to create jobs? What would private organizations do to end the condition of homelessness?
What would you suggest? We have 220 shelters in Los Angeles County. We have somewhere between 40 and 60,000 homeless people. Those 220 shelters only account for 8,300 shelter beds. I mean, this 1,000 points of light is like 1,000 flashlights shining out into space. Private agencies, you can talk private agencies all day and all night, but it's not going to solve the problem if there's no leadership from the top. Just the reverse. Ronald Reagan cut the affordable housing budget by 75%. He cut AFDC and SSI and food stamp programs, on and on and on. He took the safety net and buzzsaw holes into it where people fell, the only place that ultimately they could fall, into the streets. You're right. The government can't do it for people. Ronald Reagan did it to people.
Well, I think that's demagoguery. That's just a slogan. You can't. Not Ronald Reagan and not President Bush are God. You know, they're not. They can't solve it with a wave of their hand. What I believe is, again, it's a viewpoint from where you start from your personal convictions, and I believe that if we move towards a program where people do not see assistance from the government as a way of life.
The average stay on AFDC is only 2 years.
It should be seen as a temporary thing before they move into productive jobs that can help their lifestyles.
That would be a good program if we did have something like that where people that were receiving, okay, right now the situation exists. There are many people homeless. I don't know how many, but there are many, 5 million or more, who knows. Anyway, the people that are already existing probably need to have some sort of job training. They need to have some sort of counseling to wean them off the welfare system. People that are born into welfare-type families, they see that's the way to live. They need to be taught education.
Exactly.
Our president needs to pay teachers more money so they can educate teachers.
Right. That's why we need welfare reform.
I think we need to get back on course.
Okay.
If you want to know the average length of stay on welfare is 39 months. People go on at need and they come off at need. You've got to apply and be eligible. You can't just sit on welfare if you don't qualify for it. And if you have additional income and so on, you're off. So, you know, it's not something you can ride out.
Right.
And under the reform, and there is reform in the state of California, 165 would be redundant. There is reform, and we'll get to that later, but I want to go back to your homeless.
Okay.
You were addressing homelessness, right?
What is Congress or the Senate doing? What is our government doing to end homelessness? Briefly.
Well, I mean, there's a number of programs under, there's Bush has talked about it, the home ownership program, Home and Hope. Those are aimed primarily at first-time home buyers and not really people out on the streets. Unfortunately, the wave of the future, as passed by this budget, is there's been a strong tendency over the last couple of years